Joining us now to discuss the furore that's erupted over plans by the Florida pastor to burn the Koran is Reza Aslan. He's a writer and scholar of religions and a contributing editor at the Daily Beast. He joins us now from New York. Reza Aslan, welcome to the program. Welcome to Australian television. It appears that the pastor has now called off the protest. How did it get to this point?
Well, look, this is a megalomaniac with a tiny following in the middle of nowhere. And he put this stunt together for no other purpose than to receive precisely the international attention that he's been getting. And I think his megalomania reached some record levels when he claimed that he had gotten a personal agreement from Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf in order to move the Islamic Community Center if he called off his Quran burning. So, and we know for a fact that that's now not true. So I think the larger issue here is not so much about this pastor or really even about what this says about anti-Islamic sentiment in the United States. The larger issue here is about how the media works in this country, that one man can take the entire world hostage from Gainesville, Florida.
But can you blame the media? I mean, these comments, even in the Muslim world, one person makes a very off-the-cuff comment about America and they tend to get broadcast around the world too. It's not really the media's fault, is it?
Excellent point. And no, it's not the media's fault, and I say this as a member of the media. I mean, sometimes we're too easily blaming the media. I mean, this is what the media does. It sort of goes after these kinds of stories. I think the real story here, as far as the United States goes, is the overwhelming condemnation of this act by people of all faith communities. And indeed, the fact that Muslim and Christian and Jewish leaders have come together and expressed interreligious cooperation and solidarity with each other against this act. And in fact, you have even some very conservative, not exactly Muslim-friendly American politicians like Sarah Palin and Mitt Romney who have come out vocally against this act. The real story here is, I think, the response to it. Now, that's in the United States. Internationally, I'll be honest with you, I've been fielding calls from Brazil to Indonesia, and the response from the international community, especially that in the Muslim world and in the Middle East, is that this is an American action and that it reflects American Islamophobia and that there's a direct connection with the anti-Muslim sentiments that are on the rise in the United States and this Quran burning.
And that brings me to my next question. I mean, in the wider context, have relations between Islam, whether it's in America or anywhere else, and if you want to say the rest of the world or the Christian world, have they been damaged irreparably?
Well, I will say that it is a shock to most people that 9 years after the attacks of September 11th, anti-Muslim sentiment in the United States is higher today than it was in the immediate aftermaths of those attacks. And indeed, if you believe the Washington Post poll that came out not too long ago, some half of Americans have a negative attitude towards Islam and Muslims. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. Part of it has to do with the economy. In times of economic crisis, I think most Americans, as indeed most people around the world, look for people to blame. And in the United States, the current enemies are, well, Mexicans and Muslims, if you follow the news here. Some of it has to do with President Obama. I mean, I think it's important to recognize that some 20% of Americans, that's a fifth of the population, believe that President Obama is a Muslim, despite the fact that he has repeatedly stated that that is not the case. So I think those things, plus the uptick in attacks by Muslims with some American connection, either American citizenship or American nationality, has allowed this sort of ascension of anti-Muslim sentiment. But the real issue here, and I think what the real threat is not that there are more people who are afraid or who have negative views of Islam. It's that anti-Muslim sentiment is becoming increasingly mainstream in America. That's the real threat.
Do you fear that this whole incident could encourage some radicals somewhere to mount attacks in the future?
Well, scholars like myself who have spent the last decade studying radicalization trends, particularly amongst Muslim youth in Europe, have always made this thesis that part of the reason why we're seeing so many young European Muslims join jihad, join al-Qaeda, is because of the rampant and institutionalized Islamophobia in Europe that has created a sensation amongst young Muslims that they don't belong, that their faith has been marginalized, that their very identity is under attack. And we've always made this argument that that kind of thing could never happen in the United States, that America's commitment to religious liberties and religious freedoms would never allow the kind of institutionalized mainstreaming of Islamophobia that one sees in large parts of Europe. Well, I guess it turns out that we were wrong in that case. And now whether that means that as a result we will see greater radicalization amongst Muslim youth, something that we haven't seen by any means as any kind of trend, that remains to be seen. I hope and pray that that's not the case, but this is a dangerous, I think, situation, particularly at a delicate moment, as you yourself have noted. We're in two wars. We're in this ideological conflict, the so-called war on terror. The last thing that we need is, in the midst of this argument, which states our ideas are better than their ideas, to go away from our ideas, to betray our ideas.